Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.
The SparkFile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, your one-stop Sasquatch for creative inspiration.
I'm Laura Camian.
I'm Susan Blackwell. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome.
Welcome.
You may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File?
Mm-hmm.
Where do I get one? Mm-hmm. What do I file in it? These are good questions. Y'all, we've got answers.
Yes, we do. A Spark File is the place where you consistently collect all of your inspirations and fascinations. And if you're anything like us, you're making stuff all the time, you already know that sometimes the wellspring of inspiration can run a little dry. We are here to refill it.
We are on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspirations that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity, things that inspire us to get off our asses and make things like this very podcast.
Mm-hmm. Or a business dedicated to making the world a better place.
Or a beautiful wedding ceremony that not only gets you married, but also provides every guest with the access they need to celebrate the day with ya.
On today's Makersode, we're going to talk to someone who really sparks us.
And that someone is Angela Johnson. Angela, welcome to
The Spark File.
Hi. Hey, guys.
Angela Johnson is a professional entrepreneurial woman
Yes,
who
she
is
is.
also sitting on the floor to conduct this interview.
Word.
Yes.
And
As
I
true
love it.
professionals do.
Her choice.
Yes, my
Totally.
choice.
Her choice.
Comfortable.
That's right.
She's
Top priority.
She's grounded. So Angela is the founder of Invest in Access, and that is a company committed to universal access. She's a subject matter expert in the areas of accessibility and disability inclusion. And some of you may have just heard those sentences and might be like, I don't know what that means. So Angela, let's start with this. What is your mission with Invest in Access?
So my mission is to bring recognition and visibility to individuals who live with physical or psychological differences.
Excellent.
And so we do that by contracting with individuals or organizations to advance access. This can be on a personal basis, home organization, cluttering of emails, on a community basis, working with organizations to ensure their events, meetings, social media are fully accessible, and also on a corporate basis to look at, say, organizational change management and accessibility, inclusion in dialogue and conversations.
You do a lot of work around universal access. Can you tell us what that is?
Capital U, capital A.
That's right.
Capital U, capital A.
Universal access.
I did not know this.
Yeah, universal access. So universal access means that any individual can fully participate. It's all about reimagining environments through a lens of accessibility, basically whatever the circumstance may be. So I really feel that disability inclusion is our next human rights hurdle. Yeah, to advance as a nation. And a lot of times when people think about disability, they just think about what they can see, like people in wheelchairs, people who may use hearing devices, they have mobility aids, but some disabilities are hidden disabilities.
That's right. And we're going to get into exactly what that means. Would you mind taking us back for a moment and tell us a little bit of your backstory, why all of this is so important to you, so important that you made it your life's work?
Sure. Yes. So I live with a hidden disability of obsessive compulsive disorder. And yes, and OCD is classified actually as a mental illness.
Really?
Yes. It most definitely is.
We have the looks of shock.
Yes, yeah. Psychological difference. And so gratefully, the narrative around disabilities and mental illness is evolving. It's becoming more welcoming. Instead of saying, I have a mental illness, some highly progressive leaders now utilize the term neurodiversity.
I like that.
Yeah. Neurodiversity, which is the concept that neurological differences amongst people should be recognized and respected. It's treating it neurodiversity as any other form of diversity, such as race or sexual orientation. So it's looking at psychology as, not this is an error with me, but this is something that can be understood about other people. And there's a lot of psychological differences that are examples of neurodiversity. So certain anxiety disorders, Asperger's syndrome, dyslexia, Tourette syndrome. Another hidden disability would be chronic pain. And that's, lots of loved ones or family members, friends you may have, may live with chronic pain and it's under recognized, perhaps. And so in my case, my disability was hidden even from me. But looking back, it was very prevalent in my life. I was super ritualistic as a kid. I would experience what's called magical thinking, which is basically you're connecting two unrelated events to one another. So like this song just played, that just means in 3 hours, this is going to happen. I'm never going to date the boy I like or something, So it's like, it's connecting very detached thoughts. I think that's like what magical thinking is. And it all is hidden because it just stays in your mind. And so people don't really know that you're having this like internal dialogue.
But your neurodiversity, it seems, just from my knowledge of you, your neurodiversity has helped you excel in certain work environments. It seems to me in many ways aspects of your neurodiversity you have translated into your true superpowers.
That's really true. That's totally correct. I'm hyper focused. I mentioned, hyper vigilant, really positive, hyper positive, so it's almost I stay consistently like this all the time, which is difficult for some. I'm detail oriented, very observational. I'm really great with logistical memorization, and that definitely comes in handy a lot with work. My loved ones tend to loathe that one. They'll say like, Angela, how did you know I was going to be at this meeting that ends at such and such time? And it's just because I've memorized it from knowing it long ago or something.
Can say it one time and it can
just stays with me. Schedules
Incredible.
Or lots of people.
So it's obviously made some things easier and or easier to excel at or succeed at, but I suspect it might have made a few things harder as well.
Yes. Definitely speaking with employment sometimes, I would have these phases where if I was very like in my thoughts or what have you, then I would leave those environments. I would be really rigid. Like up until about 3 years ago, I didn't go out after dark, which is like something that's, very different. I had
people probably just make the assumption, like, obviously we can plan something at 7 or 8 or 9, and like, what's the problem?
No, and it would be that just like friends intuitively knew she does brunch, she's like in by dark, but it was really because I had like fears around that. Eating certain foods, I would get paranoid if I felt like something was wrong with food. I actually used to throw out like my family's food or other people's food because I would think like, this is bad, like something's wrong with it. And they'd be like, Angela, this was leftovers from yesterday. Like, why are
going into the coworkers, the company fridge in the kitchen and just like,
can you imagine
your lunch for today?
Yeah, can you imagine?
I had a feeling about it.
I had a feeling, and you just like really think it's the right thing to do, and people are like, what is wrong with you?
They must have loved that.
Yeah, it was. It's now it's laughable.
Angela
thank God.
didn't really do that. I just made that up. That was a joke.
Yeah. So, and I guess the really big thing was that I couldn't leave messages unread. So, you might get, exactly. And especially nowadays with all of the notifications.
It's so funny that you say that. Wow. I can imagine how that could be to your detriment. And I can imagine how an employer would fucking love it.
Yes.
Great. Reply to everyone.
It used to be, something like instantaneous reporting would be what would be like expected of me and known that she does, she's responded to this email as though it's a text message.
You can't control your
I had to learn how to prioritize what was, because something like taking out the trash felt equally important as something like paying my AT&T bill or something. You know what I mean? Right. So it's learning to prioritize what is it.
If you were at the theater or at the movies with friends or something, would you still be checking?
I would leave consistent. Like I would probably walk out of a movie theater maybe once or twice during a movie.
Sure.
Like for the quote unquote restroom. And it's because I would be checking something. I had spans of time. Yeah.
You sound like the best employee in the world.
Best employee. I was a really great employee.
But I can imagine how difficult it would be to like relax.
And be present.
Power down.
And
be present. Yeah, that definitely took a long time. And I took it very seriously and I got treatment that I needed. There was a time that I had CBT therapy. It's cognitive behavioral therapy.
I've done that.
Have you? You have?
Yes.
Really?
I think it's the best.
Yeah, it was definitely.
I've had a lot of different kinds of
must
therapies.
Know more.
Yeah.
Must know more.
Yes.
So cognitive behavioral therapy was absolutely what set me back on a new path.
Yeah.
There was a time when I would have 60 to 90-minute sessions 3 times a week for 4 months straight.
Well, you were kind of learning so much about yourself.
Yeah.
And then learning how to walk kind of a different path with your learning.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Because I'm still the same, but I just like function in the world better.
In a way that's healthier.
In a way that's healthier. Yeah. And so sustainable. Absolutely. So I can choose where my superpowers or my hypervigilance in my work, are positive, just like with Invest in Access. And then I've taught myself ways to power down, limit notifications, be more present with people that are close to me in my lives. And it's been really good, guys.
Really good.
Yeah.
I am also interested in knowing how you not only learned this for yourself and for you to learn, coping strategies and how to work with it, but you went a step further and decided to make this your life's work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can you talk about like how that spark of inspiration came to you?
Yes. Well, I've always known that I wanted to work on behalf of children. I love children. I love mentorship. I think it's like children like ages 12, very formidable, but also those little ones, 4 and 5, it's just very dear. And so that's like where it started, and then if I think about disability, a lot of everyday environments aren't accessible for people who live with disabilities. And so my inspiration was essentially that I want children who live with physical or psychological differences to grow up in a society that recognizes them as visible and then also equally valuable contributors.
Yes.
So I'm dedicating my life to that. work.
Angela, what are the areas of focus that you and others who are devoted to universal access, what are y'all working on? Like, give me some examples of actual, what are you working on?
How does this play out?
Yeah. So the three big areas I would say that myself and others are working on are infrastructure, recreation, and workplace culture.
Infrastructure, recreation.
And workplace culture.
Yes. Ding, ding, ding. Right. Yeah. So here we go to talk you through it. Right. So infrastructure would be, for example, creating dignified changing places for people with limited mobility. So that is a thinking thought, it's something people necessarily haven't really heard. But in Sweden and in the United Kingdom, their government is working to establish changing places, and my organization Invest in Access is recognized as the United States affiliate of Changing Places UK. And so it's the only organization in my home state of Michigan that's associated, a formal member, and then also a couple of organizations throughout the United States. But how it works, implementation wise, is that I'm talking with my city officials to ensure that changing places are implemented into our city's universal access park in 2020.
So when you say changing places,
correct.
Let's break it down.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is there are not just babies, but
correct.
people with disabilities
who
need support,
dignified
and
access.
To have places where they can change. You and I were actually talking about this off mic, that for some people, they have to be right now because there's not a dignified space for them, laid on the floor of a public bathroom.
Like at the airport, I think about trying to travel.
Exactly.
Or a subway. Where are you going to go?
Yeah. And so it really limits people presently. You don't go out or
a huge,
it's huge
that it should already, in the same way that changing spaces for babies
correct
exist in the world with some frequency. It seems like it should exist as part, if you go to a big box store,
correct,
there should be a bathroom with a dignified changing place.
Yeah. And it really gets into I could talk about this for hours, but it really gets into economic opportunity too, because a lot of times these, individuals and their loved ones or caretakers don't go out to these big box environments or stores because you would have to limit your trip. You would have to there's a lot of considerations. It's just not for you. And so it becomes that catch-22 of people thinking, unfortunately, I don't see this type of person. So they don't exist.
Of course you don't, because they can't even go out in the world.
This starts to give me...
exactly.
Kimmy and I talk about when something gives you a visceral feeling, start paying attention to it. Yeah. This starts to give me, it starts to become very real to me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And very visceral to me because I'm yes, of course. Yeah. This makes perfect common sense.
Yeah. People with, say, cerebral palsy, or if you're paraplegic, it's true. And so you'll see in, you could Google, changing places or something, or look it up online, and you'll see the pictures that people will kind of post, the realities of their loved ones being on the floor, or they'll take a cot, et cetera. So infrastructure is big. Infrastructure big.
Yes. I am feeling infrastructure.
Yeah. Most definitely. Yes. And then recreation. So a lot of recreational options right now are not accessible for people who live with disabilities. But at the same time, people with disabilities really have the same, wellness benefits from recreation as an able-bodied person. And so I'm collaborating right now with Dr. Faranmi Okunlami. He is a physician at the University of Michigan, and he is leading their adaptive sports programs. Wow. So it's awesome. It's basically where people who live with a disability and people who are able-bodied play sports side by side. Yes. And so it really drives home that message to those who believe otherwise, that, disability is not inability. That's and, we coexist, Yes. And then, along those lines of coexisting workplace culture, it's working with organizations to create equity in regards to disability in the workplace. So ensuring that there's guidance on captioning services, ASL interpreters for meetings, and utilizing inclusive language when speaking.
So
that's kind of
amazing. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I'm like, you are doing great work in the world.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I need to get my shit together.
No, not at all.
What are you doing, Susan?
What's happening?
What am I doing?
I'm this entrepreneur sitting on the floor and yeah.
You are making such good stuff happen in the world.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Susan.
I keep going
Yeah.
sidebar here, but my mind keeps going back to, like, I like to trace things back. I like history. I like, figuring out, like, how did we get here?
Sure.
And I'm curious to know, is this a result of, like, literally people feeling early on as city planning is happening, like just that you are supposed to stay hidden away if you have any kind
exactly. This is historically, I mean, I would, my opinion would be yes, absolutely that it just was not in our conscious. If you were a certain type of different, it kind of goes through that system of it. Was it race? Was it women? You keep your differences hidden away.
So we're not going to plan for that.
We're not planning for that. We're not doing that. That's not a thing. And so because it's true, people worry. There's gratefully new standards of mental health and institutions, et cetera. But people, it wasn't thought in mind. Exactly like you said. Yeah,
like,
you said it. You said it great.
An age where it is about making it visible and literally saying to everyone, "Come out into the light.
Yeah,
come and join the world.
Yeah, and this is here for you.
And we'll try to make it
sidebar on your sidebar. I'm my brain is spar.
Yes, mine is too.
Right now,
this is crazy.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, we'll talk more about this in a moment, but I want to do everything that we can in our workshops, in our there's always a point in the show where I'm like, I'm going to burst into tears. Workshops, like for the podcast, where I'm like, how can we make this as accessible as possible?
Yes.
But we're going to get there.
We're totally going to get there. Yes. Okay. What are the big takeaways you want us to know?
That you come across a lot more people than you realize that live with a disability or a difference.
Yes. It does remind me of that saying, be kind.
Yeah.
Everyone you meet is fighting a great battle.
It's a little akin to walking in someone else's shoes as well.
Empathy.
You have no idea what other people are going through.
Angela, I've known you for years.
Like many years.
And have always thought of you as this very high functioning, and you are like very, you want to get something done. You have a campaign that you need run. You have a big event that you need to have planned and executed. You are a go-to. And that is true. And what I just wasn't considering is that underneath that, you may have felt like a spinning top because of neurodiversity.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Both of these things can be true. You can be managing your OCD and excelling and succeeding in a million ways.
Absolutely.
They can both be happening
and I
at
think
the same time.
That's where we're headed. That's absolutely.
Okay. So if we are going to keep our eyes open and know that more people than we may suspect are sort of living with a disability, a hidden disability, what can we think of in terms of making a difference?
Yeah. So very much as you said, for people in general, don't assume the worst of others, extend a bit of understanding when people might require things differently or their minds work differently. So, it's just really like listening and being patient with people that you might think like, why can't they get these words out, and it's really something else might be going on. And if you can be a calm presence, that really is helpful to others.
I think there is something to that. I know that sometimes when I have met somebody who has a visible disability, sometimes I get scared that I'm going to do it wrong, or that I'm going to somehow do it wrong. I don't know what that even means.
What it is, but you're going to do it
that
wrong.
idea of just like slowing down and being patient, and just like taking time.
Yeah, absolutely.
That speaks to me.
Speaking directly.
So help me move past this fear that I'm going to do it wrong, that we're going to say the wrong term, that we're going to take the wrong approach.
It's nerve-wracking.
This is a real fear I have though with this podcast. I'm so afraid. Sometimes I get so afraid. I'm just like, I'm going to do it wrong. And so to help in the realm of this, in this work that you do, Angela, how can we just stay in it and move through it.
Yeah. I mean, I think even when you were mentioning earlier, about wanting to ensure that you're doing everything possible to make the podcast accessible, that forethought in and of itself is leaps and bounds, ahead of many people. So you are already on the right track, and I think that in society in general, taking time out of your day to acknowledge the humanity of another person, totally never wrong.
Always in good taste.
Always in good taste. Yeah.
Fashion.
Yeah.
Always.
And so at Invest in Access, one of our core values is dignity. And the way that that's defined is maintaining an open mind and a respectful heart for human differences, both known and unknown to your lived experience.
Those are words to live by.
Yeah. And so, also too, knowing that at different points in our lives, we're all vulnerable. And at times, even when we don't choose to be. Yeah.
That's right.
So extending compassion is really important. And then just learning about, different disabilities so that you can stay present.
Yes.
Even if you do fear, like have that apprehension or fear, you can be in the moment with that person.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about this in terms of the creative process, like feeling that fear, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, even when you don't feel like being vulnerable.
Yes.
You're like, I don't wish to be feeling this right now. And yet I am. Learning how to lean into it, not fighting against it. I think, we're curious to know how you think that access can live like in the creative world, in the arts, in a podcast. If you're a creative person making things, how can you weave this into your work and just make it a
standard.
Reality.
A standard.
Mainstream it.
Mainstream it. Yes. And so I think the biggest, way is just to be mindful of how information is being communicated in such a way, for somebody who may have, who may be deaf, casting breakdowns that could provide wordage such as all abilities welcome. That's kind of a clue to, the accessible community and disability community that all abilities welcome. Yes. Sensory friendly performances are starting to be done. And also artists traveling with ASL interpreters. That would be if there was a listener who is an artist. That is the ding ding most progressive thing that you can do. Yeah. Chance the Rapper. He did so in 2017. He traveled with Matt Maxey, and he's the founder of Definitely Dope. So that would be really cool, seeing so rapping. Yeah. So that just
really interesting.
Yeah. And it just opens it up and it gives you literally the visual clue too, that this is all accessible.
Yeah.
I think, the other one would be, venues. Some venues can provide noise canceling headphones for people who are susceptible to sensory overload. Those headphones tend to mitigate a person feeling overwhelmed. You might have a loved one who says oh, I'm not sure if I can go to this theater, this public event. Right. This is my child or what have you. And if that was made a standard or a norm, that would be also go a long way.
That's something that I know we did at Blue Man Group and as well as the sensory friendly performances. And it's I was a little bit shocked when we decided to do it because the show itself is sensory overload. But we worked with
going that extra mile
to figure out what could you do to help someone feel comfortable and be able to enjoy the show. Yeah, it's
That's
great.
fantastic.
And I know many more theaters are doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, disability inclusion is a win-win. Even some of our United States government, provides tax incentives even to qualifying organizations and companies for their efforts in progressing disability inclusion. So it's, most definitely.
That's great. Do you have any words of advice for us of how we can make this podcast more accessible? I mean, we've talked about a few things we want to do, but we're feeling vulnerable. If you can see us right now, we feel vulnerable, but we don't know all the things that we don't even know what we don't know.
Exactly.
So
goes for everyone, right?
Help us.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that, providing translations, so captioning on to videos that are live on your website or on social media. So translations, transcriptions of all the episodes. You can include a universal access graphic. And if you have, certain graphics on your site, that will indicate that the aforementioned, translates and transcriptions and translations are available.
Okay. Great.
Yes.
That's just a quick read.
Yeah, a quick read that someone knows.
Yeah.
And you see like different, marginalized communities adopt kind of their own logos, but you see that those are commonly recognized if you go into social spaces. So that definitely monitoring the rate at which you speak during a podcast, which is tricky for me.
Does that
fast talker?
Do you mean slow down?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when we get excited, which we do a lot
Right.
on this. When we're
And
like,
we talk over each other.
Like we just did.
Okay. This is where the rubber hits the road.
Right. The work to be done.
Yeah.
And then, another one would be website accessibility. So the foremost principles for website accessibility are published by W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium. So that's where, anybody who's listening, and you as a team could check that out as well, just to kind of see, even though it might be really like very complicated. W3C. And you'll start to see as you scroll through different organization sites, perhaps they'll say, this is our web accessibility statement. So it shows that by even having a web accessibility statement, they're on the track of trying to be mindful.
Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
About web accessibility.
We got a lot of work to do.
A lot of work to do. So
we do.
I hope one day we tour.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I would love to tour and do our show
tour
live. How would we make our live shows more accessible?
Yes. So I would say, event announcements would be the key there. If you're a person living with a disability and you might be interested in attending an event, you're used to searching for that little addendum that's in programs that say, if you require accommodation, please contact us 2 weeks out. You'll see something like that. But say you're just like an everyday, just like you and me, and we want to go somewhere, we decide we want to go that evening. Now we are unable. So if you're looking to create a fully accessible announcement, you would just say, if you require accommodation, please advise what you need in order to participate most fully, and then contact us at, such and such link and such number.
You don't have to be planning your life
weeks or months in advance.
You can also be accommodated the day up.
But we're going to sell out. Like,
I think tickets are, you probably will need to plan ahead.
We'll need to plan ahead.
Everyone will.
Just because of the demand.
I love it.
I hear all this and I do get scared that, like, what if we can't do all these things? What if we can't afford to do all these things? What if we can barely get our shit together to make a podcast and get the podcast up online? And I just think
that's real talk.
I really get scared because I don't want to just like virtue signal.
Right.
That it's like,
we want to be able to,
our hearts are in the right place.
Virtue signal. I've never heard virtue signal.
It's like, but our hearts are in the right place. And we had this great conversation with Angela Johnson.
Oh, so now it's all done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I see.
So I get scared.
Yeah.
I get scared of like, that I'm
virtue signal. That's
fail.
A good one.
That the teacher becomes the student.
Yeah, I'm gonna use that.
Anyway, I just get scared.
Yeah. We'll take it one thing at a time. We are like living in a great time where anything that is an effort is at the forefront of disability inclusion. And so I think that don't be afraid. Just take it one thing at a time,
just
Susan.
Breathe, Susan.
Yeah.
Just breathe.
breathing. And, it's all on us to, fully recognize the humanity of other people and take actionable steps to create that equity. One of my favorite quotes is by Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Zen master. Yes. And one of his quotes is, "To be loved is to be recognized as existing." Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay.
But we'll just take it one thing at a time. So maybe
time.
like a thing we could do, Camion, is figure out even just like how, I've never seen a podcast do this. Maybe TED Talks do this, but like how to transcribe, how to make the transcription of our podcasts available so that if anybody, I can't imagine who would want that, but maybe somebody would like to read it that can't hear.
Yeah. I really think that
I think we should pick
doable.
one
we can do it.
thing and then do it, and then we can tackle the next thing that we pick.
Yeah. And I'm always here if you guys have any.
And we can also contact Angela Johnson.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, Angela,
much.
so much.
Thank you. Angela Johnson is the founder of Invest in Access, a company committed to universal access. You can find her online at invest-in-access.com.
And I'm going to be clicking on that
Click
when I'm
it.
panicked.
Click
I wake up in the
it.
middle of the night and I'm scared that I'm doing it wrong.
That's where we're
Angela,
going first.
you're
Our
the
first
phone number
stop.
I'm calling. Yeah. So that's it. We hope that this put another bunch of sparks in your file. If there is a spark that you would like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and you fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share that with us, please email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website. That's thesparkfile.com.
That's right.
And be sure to subscribe to this deliciousness wherever you get your deliciousnesses. Subscribe, rate, 5-star review it. If you like this podcast, share it with people that you love. And if you don't like it, share it with people from your opposing political party.
If something tickled your fancy or got your creative juices flowing, we are writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You got to spot it. You got to jot it. You got to save it. And then you got to go on and be real brave with it.
Just take it and make it.
Thank you, Angela Johnson.
Thank you, guys.
Baby's first podcast.
Baby's first podcast.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I wanna make or how I wanna be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.